You think your absolute refusal to ask for help is a sign of stubborn pride. You are completely wrong. Every time you face a crisis in absolute silence, absorbing the pressure entirely on your own, your nervous system is executing a ruthless biological calculation. It has recognized a painful truth that the majority of society actively denies. In the modern world, relying on others is a cognitive liability. Society loves to romanticize vulnerability. They tell you that asking for help is a sign of strength. They claim that humans are tribal creatures who must lean on one another to survive. But behavioral psychology reveals a much darker structural reality about your hyper-independence. You do not stay silent because you are arrogant. You stay silent because you have calculated the catastrophic hidden costs of external support. Let us break down the exact mechanism of the incompetence tax. When an average person faces a problem, they immediately broadcast their panic. They seek out the nearest available human and dump their emotional weight onto them, begging for a rescue. But your brain operates on an entirely different standard of efficiency. When you encounter a massive obstacle, you immediately calculate the metabolic cost of fixing it yourself versus the metabolic cost of explaining it to someone else. And the brutal reality is that explaining your complex, nuanced problem to a fundamentally distracted person takes vastly more energy than simply enduring the pain and solving it in the shadows. You refuse to pay the incompetence tax. To get help, you have to drag someone else up to your level of comprehension. You have to endure their useless advice. You have to manage their emotional reaction to your crisis. You are essentially taking on a second job just to manage the person who is supposed to be helping you. You have realized that 99% of the time, the people offering a hand do not possess the competence, the bandwidth, or the endurance to actually solve the problem. They just want the moral superiority of feeling helpful. You reject this charade entirely. You would rather carry a crushing weight in absolute silence than watch someone else fumble with it and make the situation worse. But this behavior goes much deeper than efficiency. It is rooted in the dark architecture of emotional debt. You understand that in this society, absolutely nothing is free. When people offer you help, they are rarely doing it out of pure altruism. They are drafting a contract. They are acquiring leverage. The moment you accept their assistance, you are entering into an invisible transaction. They will hold that favor over your head. They will expect your time, your obedience, and your undivided loyalty in return. You possess a highly analytical mind that despises manipulation. You refuse to become an emotional hostage. You have decided that the price of your sovereignty is worth the exhaustion of doing everything yourself. You never ask for help because you never want to owe a single fraction of your success or your survival to someone who might weaponize it against you later. This level of extreme self-reliance is an elite defense mechanism, and it usually stems from a profound psychological adaptation early in your life. At some critical point in your development, you learned a brutal lesson: availability is conditional. When you were young and vulnerable, the people who were supposed to protect you either dropped the ball, manipulated the situation, or simply vanished when things became difficult. Your amygdala, the alarm system of your brain, recorded that failure permanently. It hardwired a new survival protocol into your identity. If you rely on someone, you will be disappointed. If you expose your weak flank, you will be exploited. Therefore, the only logical way to guarantee your survival is to become the absolute architect of your own reality. You built a cognitive fortress. While other people crumble the moment their support systems are removed, you are entirely self-contained. You have survived 100% of your worst days completely alone, and that track record has given you a terrifying level of quiet confidence. You are immune to the threat of abandonment. Society looks at your hyper-independence and calls it a trauma response. They label you as guarded, difficult to read, or emotionally unavailable. What they fail to understand is that your hyper-independence is an unfair evolutionary advantage. Because you do not wait for a savior, you act with immediate, ruthless accountability. While the crowd sits around complaining about the economy, the system, or their lack of support, you are quietly executing solutions. You adapt to chaos faster than anyone else in the room because you know there is no safety net to catch you. Let us be completely clinical about this. Does extreme self-reliance cause exhaustion? Yes. Does it lead to burnout? Absolutely. Carrying the weight of the world on your own shoulders is a metabolically expensive strategy. But you have done the math, and you prefer the physical exhaustion of hard work to the psychological torture of relying on unreliable people. You are not broken for operating this way. You belong to a rare minority of high performers who generate their own momentum. Sovereignty is not a defect, It is a superpower. However, to master this psychological protocol, you must recognize the difference between protecting your energy and isolating yourself out of pure fear. True self-sufficiency means you are capable of doing everything alone, but you choose to let highly vetted, competent people into your life. The barrier to entry is simply astronomical. If someone wants to help you, they must prove that their presence is actually more effective than your solitude. And the painful truth is, very few people on this planet meet that standard. Stop letting mediocre people make you feel guilty for your strength. You do not need to lower your standards just to make them feel useful. While the world exhausts itself begging for rescue and drowning in emotional debt, you build your own lifeboats. While they wait for permission, you build empires in the silence. That is not stubbornness, that is absolute sovereignty. And sovereignty is the quiet superpower that separates the elite from the dependent crowd. If this clinical breakdown mapped your exact psychological reality, subscribe to the channel, protect your autonomy, build your legacy. See you in the next protocol.